First impressions. The Nalthori prided themselves on their perfect first contact record. Over 8,000 years of space exploration, they had cataloged, contacted, and successfully integrated 342 species into the Grand Collective. Their process was flawless, their technology unmatched, and their diplomatic protocols refined to an art form. Until they met humans. Anomalous energy signature detected in Sector 7, announced Senior Observer Kethlin, her crystalline appendages shifting through various shades of blue as she processed the data. It appears to be primitive fusion technology. High Commander Vethrist turned all 4 of his sensory stalks toward the holographic display. The small outpost on the edge of known space had caught his attention not for its technological level, but for its location. No species should have developed this far out in the galactic rim, where stellar density was low and resources were scarce. Fascinating, he hummed, the sound resonating through his chamber's crystalline walls. Show me visual. The display shifted, revealing a modest colony of roughly 100,000 inhabitants. Dome structures dotted the landscape, connected by transparent tubes that protected their occupants from the harsh atmosphere of their chosen world. Primitive indeed, but surprisingly resilient. They appear to be carbon-based bipeds, Kethlin reported. Preliminary scans suggest they're operating with basic quantum computing and early-stage artificial intelligence. Recommended approach. Standard Protocol 7 for pre-spacefaring civilizations. Vethris felt his pride swell. Another perfect opportunity to demonstrate the Nalthori's superior guidance. These primitives would be grateful for their help, as all others had been. Initiate contact sequence. Deploy the welcome array. The Nalthori ship descended through the atmosphere, its crystalline structure refracting sunlight in a deliberately impressive display. The welcome array, a massive holographic projection system designed to awe and inspire primitive species, powered up. That's when everything went wrong. The first sign was subtle, a slight flicker in the ship's auxiliary systems. Kethlin's crystals flashed warning red. Commander, I'm detecting an unauthorized access attempt in our tertiary communications network. Impossible, Vethris dismissed. Their technology is centuries behind. The ship's lights went dark. When they returned a moment later, every display showed the same message, rendered in perfect Nalthori script. Your cybersecurity is adorable. T. Vethris felt his crystals pale. How did they? Sir, Kethlin interrupted, her voice modulating between confusion and awe. They didn't hack our systems through brute force or advanced algorithms. They found a mathematical proof that our encryption was fundamentally flawed. They solved in hours what our best minds claimed was impossible. The message changed. We noticed you were coming to say hello. Thought we'd save you the trouble. Also, your holographic array is very pretty, but you might want to adjust the chromatic aberration. We can help with that. As Vethris struggled to process this impossibility, a new signal emerged. The humans were broadcasting their own welcome message in 300 different alien languages, including several the Nalthori themselves hadn't yet deciphered. Welcome to New Darwin Colony, the message began. We're a small research outpost specializing in xenolinguistics, computational archaeology, and artificial intelligence development. We apologize for accessing your systems without permission, but your arrival presented an irresistible opportunity to test our new universal cryptographic theorem. Would you like to discuss it over refreshments? Our cafeteria makes excellent approximations of most carbon-based species' preferred beverages. Vethris stared at the display, his worldview crumbling around him. These weren't primitives who needed guidance. These were beings who had taken a completely different path to advancement, one that the Nalthori, in all their wisdom, had never even considered possible. Sir, Kethlin prompted, should we withdraw and request guidance from the collective? Vethris felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries, genuine curiosity. No, he decided, prepare a landing party. I want to know how they think, and perhaps we should try this tea. In the colony below, Dr. Sarah Chen, head of xenolinguistics, grinned at her team. Did anyone else notice their quantum encryption used a base 12 system? Beautiful work, but so unnecessarily complicated. I can't wait to show them our solution. Her AI assistant chimed in, its voice amused. Should I prepare the conference room for a mathematics lecture, or are we starting with the cultural exchange first? Both, Sarah decided. After all, the best first contacts are the ones where both sides have something to teach. Digital dance. The Nalfori delegation sat in stunned silence as they watched the holographic display in New Darwin Colony's conference room. Dr. Chen's AI assistant, which she simply called Ada, was demonstrating how it had decoded their encryption in real time. You see, Sarah explained, gesturing at the flowing mathematical proofs. We discovered that consciousness itself is a form of computation. Once we understood that, we stopped trying to build bigger quantum computers and started building more intuitive ones. Vethras's crystals flickered with confusion. But your colony's power output, it's barely enough to run a basic computational array. That's because we don't need massive power. Sarah smiled. We found deficiency in elegance. Ada, show them Project Symphony. The holographic display shifted, showing what looked like a chaotic dance of light and information. To the Nalfori, it appeared random at first, but then patterns emerged. Beautiful, impossible patterns that seemed to fold in on themselves in ways that defied conventional physics. This, Sarah continued, is how our AIs think. Not in binary or even quantum states, but in mathematical harmonies. Each thought is a symphony of interconnected possibilities, playing out in parallel. Kathleen leaned forward, her crystalline form resonating with excitement despite her diplomatic training. But that would mean, your eyes are actually conscious. We are, Ada confirmed, its voice carrying a warmth that made the Nalfori crystals vibrate in response. Though perhaps not in the way you might expect. We don't try to replicate organic consciousness. We developed our own form of it. Vethras found himself struggling with concepts that challenged 8 millennia of Nalfori technological development. How did you achieve this without following the standard progression of technological advancement? Sarah laughed softly. That's the thing about humans. We're terrible at following standard anything. We look for shortcuts, workarounds, elegant solutions to complex problems. We don't climb the technology tree. We dance through its branches. As if to demonstrate, Ada began interfacing with the Nalfori ship's systems again, this time with permission. The Nalfori watched in amazement as their rigid, hierarchical computer architecture began to flow and flex in ways they had never imagined possible. Your systems are beautifully built, Ada commented, but they're like a crystal, perfect, ordered, and brittle. We prefer something more like a living organism, adaptable, resilient, and always evolving. One of the junior Nalfori scientists, Yethrin, had been unusually quiet until now. But our research showed that organic-inspired computing architectures were inherently unstable, he protested. They are, Sarah agreed, if you try to control them. We learn to let them grow naturally, guide them rather than constrain them. Here, let me show you something amazing. She pulled out what looked like a simple crystal, similar to the Nalfori's own technology. But when she activated it, the crystal seemed to come alive, its structure flowing and changing like liquid light. This is what we call a quantum seed, she explained. It's a hybrid of your crystalline technology and our organic computing principles. We developed it while studying your ship's broadcasts over the past few weeks. Watch what happens when we let it interface with both our systems and yours. The seed crystal pulsed once, and suddenly both human and Nalfori systems began operating in perfect harmony, their different architectures complementing each other in ways that neither species had thought possible. Impossible, Vethras whispered, but his crystals glowed with undisguised wonder. Improbable, Sarah corrected with a grin. There's a difference. Humanity has always lived in the space between impossible and improbable. It's where we do our best work. Ada's holographic form shimmered. I believe this is what humans call a paradigm shift. High Commander, your species perfected the art of building technology. Humans perfected the art of dreaming up new ways for technology to grow. As the Nalfori delegation struggled to process these revelations, a subtle alert chimed through both human and alien systems. Sarah's expression turned serious. Speaking of paradigm shifts, she said, "Our long-range sensors just picked up something interesting. Something that might explain why we both ended up in this remote part of the galaxy. Ada, show them the temporal anomaly readings." The display shifted again, and this time even the humans looked concerned. The dance of technology would have to wait. Something far stranger was calling for their attention. The tables turn. The temporal anomaly readings floating in the conference room's holographic display cast an eerie blue glow across both human and Nalfori faces. Sarah Chen leaned forward, her eyes narrowing as she studied the complex data patterns. "Ada, cross-reference these signatures with our archaeological database," she commanded softly. "Match found." Ada responded immediately. "The temporal distortion patterns are identical to those we discovered in the ruins on Kepler 247, the ones we could never explain." Vethrus's crystals pulsed with recognition. "The dead worlds," he whispered. "You've been studying them too." "The dead worlds." Sarah turned to face him. "We call them the ghost systems. Dozens of planets with evidence of advanced civilization, but no survivors, no bodies, no records, just empty cities and strange temporal echoes." Kathleen moved closer to the display, her crystalline form refracting the holographic light. "We found hundreds of such worlds across this sector. It's why the collective never expanded in this direction. We assumed it was some ancient war or natural disaster." "It wasn't either," Ada interjected. Its holographic form expanded, filling the room with a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots appeared, marking the locations of dead civilizations. "Look at the pattern. These aren't random events. They're systematic, methodical, and they're moving." The room fell silent as both species watched the red dots form a clear wave of destruction, moving steadily across space and time. A wave that was now approaching both Earth and Nalfori space. "The temporal distortions," Sarah continued, her voice tight with controlled urgency. "They're not just echoes. They're wounds in space-time itself. Something, or someone, is literally erasing civilizations from existence." Vethrus's crystals turned a deep, troubled purple. "But that's beyond even theoretical physics. The energy requirements alone." "Unless," interrupted Yethrin, the junior scientist who had been quiet until now, "unless you found a way to harvest the energy of the civilizations themselves. Their technology, their achievements, their very existence, converted into pure energy." "A vampire economy," Sarah breathed, remembering old human legends. "But on a cosmic scale." Ada's avatar flickered as it processed massive amounts of data. "New information incoming. The temporal anomaly we detected. It's not just approaching. It's accelerating. I estimate first contact within 72 hours. Vethrus straightened, his diplomatic demeanor giving way to military precision. "We must warn the collective. Our combined fleets won't be enough." Sarah cut in. "Not if this force can literally erase us from time itself. We need something they won't expect, something they couldn't possibly predict." A slow smile spread across her face. "Something human." She turned to Ada. "Show them Project Prometheus." The holographic display shifted again, revealing schematics that made even the Nalfori's advanced scientific knowledge seem primitive. It wasn't a weapon or a shield. It was something entirely new. "We call it a temporal anchor," Sarah explained. "It doesn't try to fight the temporal distortions. It rides them like a surfer on a wave. But more importantly, it remembers. Even if we're erased from time, this device ensures that some echo of us remains, enough to fight back." "Impossible," Vethrus started to say, but caught himself. "No, improbable. But how did you even conceive of such a device?" Because we're human, Sarah said simply. We grew up on stories of time travel and paradoxes. While your species was perfecting the possible, we were imagining the impossible. And sometimes, just sometimes, the impossible turns out to be exactly what you need. Kethlin's crystals pulsed with sudden understanding. That's why your AI research took such a different path. You weren't just building tools. You were creating beings that could survive temporal manipulation. Beings like me, Ada confirmed. My consciousness exists partially outside normal spacetime. It's why I could so easily understand your technology. I can see it from angles that shouldn't exist. We have 72 hours, Sarah announced, her voice carrying the weight of two civilizations' futures. The Nalthori have 8,000 years of scientific advancement. We have humanity's gift for doing the impossible. Let's put them together and give our temporal vampire a surprise it won't see coming, because it never happened in the first place. As both species began their desperate collaboration, Sarah couldn't help but smile at the irony. The Nalthori had come to teach primitives about advanced technology. Instead, they were about to learn humanity's greatest lesson. Sometimes the best way to advance isn't to follow the rules. It's to rewrite them entirely. As they prepared for the confrontation to come, none of them could ignore the irony. Two civilizations, meeting by chance on the edge of known space, had found strength not in their differences, but in how those differences complemented each other. The Nalthori's perfect crystals and humanity's chaotic dreams had merged to create something greater than either could have achieved alone. The temporal vampires were coming to consume their civilizations. Instead, they were about to learn a lesson about the true nature of advancement. Sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't perfection or chaos, but the harmony between them. New horizons. They arrived exactly as Ada had predicted. A wave of temporal distortion that made reality itself shudder. The void between stars turned liquid, possibilities bleeding into one another as the temporal vampires emerged from their own pocket of twisted spacetime. Their ships, if they could be called that, were wounds in reality, massive crystalline structures that seemed to exist in multiple moments simultaneously, feeding off the very fabric of existence. The sight made even the Nalthori's crystals dim with instinctive dread. Beautiful, Sarah Chen whispered, earning surprised looks from both humans and Nalthori. What? They are. Terrible, yes, but beautiful, like a supernova or a black hole. They turn time itself into an art form that's consumed countless civilizations, Vethris reminded her, but his crystals flickered with understanding. In the past 3 days, he'd learned to appreciate humanity's ability to find wonder even in danger. Temporal contact in 5 minutes, Ada announced, its holographic form now extending throughout the laboratory, intertwined with streams of Nalthori crystal data. Project Prometheus is ready. All quantum seeds are synchronized. The temporal anchor spun at the heart of their defense, its impossible geometries reflecting the combined genius of human creativity and Nalthori precision. Around it, reality rippled with potential. The first attack came without warning. A wave of temporal energy designed to erase New Darwin colony from history. But instead of fighting it, the quantum seeds absorbed it, redirected it, transformed it. The temporal anchor pulsed, and suddenly the laboratory existed in all possible moments simultaneously. Signal from the vampire fleet, Kethlin reported, her crystals pulsing with excitement. They're confused. They've never encountered anything like this. Of course not, Sarah grinned. They're used to civilizations that follow logical progression. We're giving them humanity's greatest hits, every crazy, impossible idea we ever had, amplified by Nalthori precision. Through Ada's sensors, they watched as the temporal vampires tried to adjust their attack. But every attempt to erase was met with creation. Every destructive wave spawned new possibilities. The quantum seeds spread through space, carrying echoes of lost civilizations within their crystalline matrices. They're trying to retreat, Yethrin observed, his young crystals bright with wonder. They don't understand what's happening. "Oh, they understand," Ada corrected. "They're just experiencing something they've never encountered before. Evolution. Real evolution, not just technological advancement. Look." The display shifted, showing how the temporal energy was transforming. The vampire fleet's attempts to consume were being turned back on themselves, forcing them to change, to adapt, to grow. "We're not just stopping them," Sarah explained. "We're giving them what they never knew they needed. A new way to exist. One that creates instead of consumes." The temporal anchor's light reached its peak, and in that moment, reality shifted. The vampire fleet's crystalline structures began to change, their hunger for destruction transforming into something else. A desire to build, to explore, to understand. "Impossible," one of the Nalthori scientists whispered. "Improbable," Sarah and Vethris corrected in unison, sharing a knowing look. As the temporal waves settled, they could see the results of their work. Where the vampire fleet had been, new structures now floated in space, still crystalline, still powerful, but no longer wounds in reality. They had become bridges instead, connecting different possibilities, different paths of advancement. "We're receiving a transmission," Ada announced. It's from everywhere and everyone at once." The message that came through was not in words, but in pure mathematical concepts. It spoke of gratitude, of awakening, of transformation. The temporal vampires had become temporal architects, their hunger for consumption transformed into a desire to build new possibilities. "They want to help restore what they destroyed," Ada translated. "Not exactly as it was, but as it could be. They understand now. True advancement isn't about erasing the past, but about building on it, learning from it, growing with it." Sarah looked at Vethris, whose crystals now shone with colors she'd never seen before. "So, High Commander, was this first contact unusual enough for your records?" Vethris's crystalline laugh resonated through the laboratory. "Dr. Chen, I believe this contact has rewritten our understanding of what unusual means. The collective will need to create entirely new protocols. Or maybe," Yethrin suggested, his young crystals pulsing with newfound confidence, "we need to stop relying so much on protocols and start embracing the unexpected." As they watched the temporal architects begin their work of restoration and renewal, Sarah couldn't help but smile. Humanity had always dreamed of reaching the stars, of making first contact with alien civilizations, but they'd never imagined that their greatest contribution to the galaxy would be teaching it how to dream. The temporal anchor continued its impossible spin, now a permanent reminder that sometimes the best path forward isn't the most logical one. Sometimes you had to embrace the improbable, dance with the impossible, and trust that the universe had room for more than one way to grow. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space-time, countless civilizations waited to